There are cities you visit, and then there are cities that happen to you. Lisbon is a second kind. It doesn't announce itself with a grand gesture or a polished tourist welcome. It simply opens a door, a narrow cobblestone alley flanked by walls of hand-painted blue tiles, and waits for you to walk through. The moment you do, something shifts. The air changes. The light is different here, softer, almost golden even before the sun has earned it. The Atlantic breathes through every corner of this city, carrying the ghosts of sailors who once left these shores, not knowing if they would return. Today, you are someone rarer. You are someone who arrived wide-eyed and unhurried, with an entire day stretched out in front of you like the Tagus River at low tide. Wide, slow, and full of quiet possibility. Before we begin, understand one thing. Lisbon will test your pace. It will ask you, politely, but persistently, to slow down. The hills will demand it. The tiles will demand it. The old man at the corner kiosk, stirring his espresso with a small steel spoon, will demand it with nothing more than the calm certainty of his posture. This is not a city for rushing. This is a city for arriving, in the fullest sense of the word. Your alarm goes off before the city has fully decided to be awake. Just before 6:30, through your window, you can already see the faintest bruise of light pushing up from the horizon. Not quite pink yet, more like the color of old rose petals left too long in a book. Step outside. The streets of Alfama are yours alone right now. The ancient Moorish quarter draped in the hush of early morning, every cobblestone still holding the cold of the night. Your footsteps echo, a crisp, hollow rhythm against stone that has absorbed centuries of other mornings. Listen to that sound. Let it anchor you. Walk uphill. In Lisbon, this is always the instruction. Make your way toward Miraduro de Santa Lucia, the viewpoint beside a small church whose walls are tiled with enormous azuleo panels, depicting the Lisbon of centuries past. At this hour, there is no one else here. Stand at the iron railing and look out. Below you, the terracotta rooftops of Alfama tumble toward the Tagus, in a cascade of rust and amber. The river is still dark, a broad pewter ribbon catching the first pale light. Close your eyes for a moment. Breathe in through your nose. There it is, the faint mineral smell of old stone, the trace of something floral from the bougainvillea climbing the garden wall behind you, and beneath it all, that particular Lisbon smell that has no name but that you will remember for the rest of your life. Now, follow the smell of bread. Walk back down through the tangle of alleys until you find a padaria with its window fogged and its lights warm and yellow. Step inside and order uma bica. 1 espresso. It will come thick and dark and intensely concentrated, the kind of coffee that doesn't ask your permission before waking you up. Alongside it, order a pastel de nata, a custard tart with a shell of shatteringly flaky pastry and a filling that is warm, eggy, subtly vanilla, and dusted with cinnamon. Take your first bite, and don't speak. Don't check your phone. Just exist for a moment inside the taste of this tart, and the warmth of this small bakery and the pale Lisbon, morning pressing through the glass. By 9 o'clock, the city is beginning to stir. The trams are running. You can hear them before you see them, a distant metallic clang and screech, a sound like a very old and very happy machine going about its ancient business. Make your way to the tram stop and wait for the number 28. When it comes, it will be yellow, small, and made almost entirely of polished wood and brass fittings, looking for all the world as though it was pulled directly from 1935 and never quite returned. Board it. Find a window seat if you can. The tram will lurch forward, its bell clanging, once, twice, and then you are moving through Watch what passes your window. A narrow alley where laundry hangs between buildings like nautical flags, a red shirt, 2 white sheets, a child's yellow dress, all of it swaying gently in the river breeze. A doorway painted brilliant blue with a cat asleep on the step. An old woman on a second-floor balcony watering geraniums, with the careful attention of someone who considers this the most important thing she will do all day. The tram tilts alarmingly around a corner so tight you would genuinely wonder how this machine manages it. And then you are rolling past the dark stone facade of the Sir Cathedral. Its twin towers watching the street below with the solemn patience of something that has seen everything and judged nothing. Get off at Largo do Chiado. Stand in Pracaluistic camps and feel a shift in the city's energy. A street musician is setting up near the corner, and the music will drift across the square and mix with the sound of cafe chairs scraping on stone. Walk to the edge of the square and look down the hill toward the waterfront. The Tagus opens before you at the bottom of the slope, wide and silver blue and indifferent to everything, as great rivers always are. It is noon, and your body has earned a proper meal. Find a small restaurant on one of the side streets near the waterfront, somewhere with a handwritten menu in the window and tablecloths that are not quite white, and sit down. Order de bacalhau, a brás, the famous Portuguese salt cod dish, scrambled with thin fried potato sticks and eggs and black olives and fresh parsley, the whole thing glistening with good olive oil. This dish is not dramatic. It does not announce itself, but the first forkful will settle into you with the quiet authority of something deeply right. The Portuguese have been making this recipe for 500 years. Trust them. Wheat your meal. Drink a glass of Vinho Verde, young wine, barely alcoholic, slightly sparkling, cool, and citrusy, and feel how it cuts through the richness of the fish with the cleanness of sea air. If this journey through Lisbon is speaking to you, this is the moment to hit that subscribe button and leave a like. We travel to over 20 cities in this series, and every single one is a love letter to slowing down. Now, back to Lisbon. After lunch, take the Tram 15 westward toward Belém. The ride is 30 minutes of almost uninterrupted river view. Watch the Tagus from your window. Enormous container ships, moving with improbable slowness. White sailing boats tilted at their moorings. The flat marshy land of the far bank, shimmering in the afternoon heat. Get off at Belém and walk toward the water. The Jerónimos Monastery rises before you in white limestone, a church and cloister in the Manueline style, which is what happens when Gothic architecture falls in love with the sea and starts decorating every surface with carved ropes, anchors, armillary spheres, and the twisted forms of coral and seaweed. Stand in front of the south portal and tilt your head back. What you are looking at is 500 years of hand-carved stone, tier upon tier of saints and sailors and maritime symbols. Walk inside. The interior is cool and dim and full of a silence that old vaulted spaces accumulate over centuries. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of accumulated prayer and stone and time. Walk further along the waterfront to the Tour de Belém, the small stone tower standing in the river on its own island. Before you enter, turn around and look back at the city. This is how Lisbon looked to the sailors leaving for the New World. This exact river, these exact hills, this same light. They stood here, perhaps at this very spot, looking back at home, knowing they might never see it again. Feel the weight of that. It is late afternoon now, and the light has begun to do the thing that makes Lisbon famous. The Portuguese call it the luz de Lisboa, and it is real. Something about the Atlantic moisture in the air and the particular angle of the late sun turns everything a shade of gold that doesn't exist anywhere else. The azulejo tiles catch it and fracture it into 1,000 small mirrors. The river turns from silver to bronze, to something the Portuguese call a dourado gilded. And it is exactly that. Make your way back toward the city and climb one last time to the Mirador da Graça. The viewpoint above this one is quieter than the famous Portas do Sol, which means it is better. There's a small kiosk selling cold beer and wine and olives and bread. Buy something. Sit on the low wall and face west. The sky above the castle begins to change color with the slow deliberateness of something that has been doing this every evening for 4.5 billion years. First, a deepening of the blue, then amber on the horizon, then the clouds catching fire from beneath, turning from white to gold, to orange to a burning saturated pink that is almost embarrassing in its beauty. The castle goes from brown to black against the sky. The river mirrors the colors above, and somewhere around you, someone is holding a glass of wine and looking at all of this with an expression that is not nostalgia exactly and not contentment exactly, but something that contains elements of both and cannot quite be named. This is Sode. You don't need to understand it to feel it. You are already feeling it. Night arrives softly, without announcement. Find a small restaurant you can hear before you can see it, and order a plate of clams, opened in white wine and garlic and butter. A bowl of olives, marinated with lemon and thyme. A plank of good bread with Saradastrala cheese that you spread with a spoon in which tastes of cold mountain air and something ineffably good. Drink a ceramic cup of red wine from the Alentejo, dark and tannic and warm. A wine that tastes like red earth in summer. And then, around 10 o'clock, followed the sound you have been hearing in the background since you first arrived. Real Fado is what happens in a small candlelit restaurant when a woman in a black shawl stands up and begins to sing without any preamble or announcement. And the room goes quiet because it knows something true is about to happen. The voice that comes from her is raw and direct and aching. It bends around the notes, the way grief bends around facts, not avoiding them, but making them more bearable through the act of expression. Close your eyes. You don't need to understand the words. The words are about love and loss, and the sea and the distance between what we have and what we long for. When the song ends, there is a silence of 3-4 seconds before anyone breathes, because the silence is part of the song. Walk back to where you're sleeping through the empty streets of Alfama. Your footsteps are the only sound again, that same hollow rhythm on cobblestone from this morning. But you are different now. You have ridden the tram through impossible corners. You have stood on the hillside as the sky turned itself inside out in gold and pink and amber. You have listened to a woman sing about Sodade and felt it in your chest without knowing the word. Stop before you go inside. Look up. The stars are visible here in a way they rarely are in big cities. Somewhere down the hill, the Tagus is moving silently toward the sea. Tomorrow, you could go to Sintra, and its fairy tale palaces rising from forested hills dripping with mist and legend. You could go to the Algarve and stand on the red cliffs above the Atlantic and feel the edge of the known world. But here's the question I will leave you with tonight. When you leave Lisbon tomorrow, will you actually be leaving, or will some part of you stay here, and the tiles, and the tram bells, and the taste of that first espresso in the cold morning air? Lisbon doesn't let go, and honestly, you won't want it to.